Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, join me in the kitchen. Today we're decorating my first wedding cake. I'm starting off with a vanilla cake. I started by adding some buttercream onto the cake drum, and today it's gonna be a 6-inch cake that I'm decorating, and it's gonna be filled with just American buttercream. I added the first layer of cake, then I added some simple syrup onto there, which helps to lock in the moisture and keep the cake nice and moist until it's ready to be eaten. And then I went in and I piped in a layer of buttercream using the offset spatula, just using it to ensure that the buttercream is in one smooth layer. Then I added the second layer, I repeated the step, and now I'm just using the additional buttercream to go ahead and finish the cake off by doing a crumb coat. The crumb coat helps to lock in all of the crumbs, giving you a nice neat surface, clean to work on for your final application. In this case, I'll be using a white chocolate ganache. The cake will be covered and decorated with the fondant. So whenever I'm using fondant to cover a cake, I like to finish the final crumb coat with a chocolate ganache. For today's cake, because it's a vanilla cake with buttercream, I'm going to be using a white chocolate ganache. So right now I'm still continuing applying the American buttercream, and I just keep smoothing it around using my bench scraper, trying to achieve smooth surface and even coverage. Using the offset spatula again, just cleaning up the top, ensuring the edges are nice and smooth. And you just continue doing this until you achieve the nice smooth sides, filling in any little gaps, and then running the bench scraper around again until it's nice and smooth. When I was done with that, I set it into the freezer so that the buttercream sets up. While waiting for the buttercream to set up in the freezer, I went ahead and I made some fondant roses, which I'll be using to decorate the cake. I'm using the rose cutter, then I'm using a ball tool to just thin in the edges and then roll them into roses. And now I'm just dusting some of the fondant leaves that I made earlier. These were set overnight to dry and become hard. Now I'm just going in with some color just to give it a more realistic color of like a green leaf. I ended up using some food color, which is a green food gel. I also mixed that with some black. It gives like the more darker lines and veins, and I brushed it everywhere until I achieved the nice green that I was looking for. Those that's laying in the tray in the back, those were already dusted and painted, so they have the more darker green color in them. So I'll be adding those with along with the flowers onto the cake once the cake is finished covered. And once these are done painting, you just leave them to the side and let them just dry. Now back to the cake. I'm applying the chocolate ganache. It's nice, soft, and pliable. You want to work really quick but gentle at the same time, because the cake is frozen from the freezer. It's gonna set up, the chocolate is gonna set up really quickly. So you want to try to achieve a very smooth coverage with this. Just going around using the spatula and just taking the ganache and just covering all of the buttercream. You want to go around, keep doing this until you have full coverage. And as you can see, the chocolate has already set up. So now I'm just going to go in with my bench scraper, just removing all of the excess and trying to smooth out any imperfection. Because if this layer is not smooth, when I apply the fondant, you are going to be able to see the imperfections underneath. So you want to keep scraping this until you achieve a nice smooth surface. While doing this, I am dipping my bench scraper into a pot of hot water that's right sitting right next to me. This warms up the metal on the bench scraper, and it allows the chocolate to be scraped off easier and helps you to achieve that nice smooth sides. And you just keep working on it, just play with it until you achieve the nice smooth finish. It takes some patience and some time of going over and over, but the more you scrape over, the smoother the surface becomes. Now I'm repeating the same thing for the top, the corners of the cake. Using an offset spatula, I am dipping it into hot water and just slowly slicing off the rough edges. This allows me to achieve nice sharp edges. That's easier to work later when I'm applying the fondant. Okay, now that the cake is nice and smooth, it's time to go ahead and apply the fondant. I'm brushing the entire cake with a layer of water, lightly brushing it. The water allows and helps the fondant to adhere to the cake. Then gently lifting the fondant and placing it over the cake. Using my hands to ensure that it's properly secured onto the cake, especially the corners. And then using a pizza cutter to remove all excess fondant, because the excess weight will continue pulling on the fondant, which can allow the fondant to rip. Then you just continue gently massaging the fondant onto the cake. Here I'm using the help of the fondant smoother to ensure the fondant is properly attached, and then I'm going in with the pizza cutter again to remove all of the excess fondant. Then you want to continue with the fondant smoother, just rubbing it on top and all the sides just to make sure that the fondant is properly attached and there is no air bubbles. You keep working with it until you feel comfortable. And here I'm just applying the decorative appliques, which I used silicone fondant mold to create. I'm just putting 2 borders around the cake, one in the bottom, and then I'll be putting one on the top. Now I'm lightly dusting it with some pearl dust. It gives this beautiful shimmer to the entire cake. You're not able to see that on here. Using some edible glue, I'm attaching some white pearls all around the cake. And now I'm just repeating the same thing with some tiny pearls all the way around to just give a nice border. And I didn't film adding the toppers, which is the roses and the leaves, but there you have it, the finished cake. It turned out pretty well. I dusted the roses also with some of the silver dust. It just took everything over the top. I like the way this turned out overall. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And more pictures of the cake. Have a good day.